because you have a terrific piece at foxnews.com about the nuclear talks, which I believe do they get underway today?
They've already started. They're called indirect talks. So we brought in all the other participants of the JCPOA, the Iran deal, to essentially, do telephone back and forth between us and the Iranians. Of course, the problem with that is that actually isn't helpful to the U.S. position. The Biden position, which is actually similar to the Trump position, is we need a better deal. All the other partners just want to go back to the existing deal. So by bringing them into the talks and using them as an intermediary, the Biden team is actually strengthening the negotiating hand of Iran, which, for starters, is a bit of a head-scratcher.
Mm-hmm. The administration doesn't really have anything to negotiate with other than sanctions.
Right, and they've really kind of compromised on that position because they've started the outset, well, we want to go back to the talks, and they said we want a better deal. Iran said, well, no, you're not going to have a better deal, and you've already acknowledged you want to go back in. And so now we're just negotiating over when you're going to relieve sanctions in return for nothing.
Right. Right. And what did Iran say today? They're going to start their enrichment program, 60% pure uranium. It's very menacing and a real step back in terms of containing them.
Well, you know what I think a lot of people don't understand about the Iran nuclear program is we talk about it like it's some kind of conveyor belt, and we do something and we slow them down, and we don't do something and they speed up. The reality is, and this has actually been true for quite some time, Iran has all the nuclear infrastructure it needs to build a bomb if it wants to. The decision to build a bomb is a political decision. So your strategy isn't really trying to affect the physical program, their infrastructure, and we're not really sure this administration even understands what infrastructure is. But it's about dealing with the political calculus of the Iranian regime. So it's essentially flooding them with cash and money again, giving them access to the West, unrestraining them in any way. That's not a formula for affecting their political calculus. It's about being more risk averse.
And it seems to me that Iran has some vulnerabilities right now. They seem very hard hit by the pandemic.
They do have a lot of vulnerabilities, but the Iranian regime is a lot like the North Korean regime. A North Korean negotiator famously said, we ate grass once and we're happy to eat grass again. Of course, he's not going to eat grass, but the point is, dude, we're perfectly happy to have our people suffer because this is about the maintenance of the regime and the regime's power. So we don't really have necessarily the leverage to change their decision making, but we have an enormous amount of leverage to really constrain what they can do. And we actually proved that in the previous administration. We literally cratered their economy. That really significantly limited their ability to support their surrogates. It really constrained them from doing a lot of things, and it brings them under enormous pressure at home. This government is completely hated by the people of Iran. So it actually, the pressure strategy actually was really working at constraining Iran as a bad actor in the region.
So what you say the better path is to build up alliances and work Iran that way?
Right. So, look, Trump had, both for North Korea and Iran, very, very good strategies, which is, on the one hand, you use sufficient power to protect your interests, and on the other hand, you put out the diplomatic off-ramp to say, look, anytime you want to stop doing this and doing something reasonable that addresses our security, we're happy to negotiate that. It was exactly the right strategy. So in the case of Iran, it is heavy sanctionings, and continuing to foster the normalization of relations between the Arab nations and Israel. That accomplishes two things. One, it allows for building collective defense, which is a bulwark against the expansion of Iranian power. The other thing is it allows for economic integration. And those countries can rapidly build up their economies while Iran is just, withering away.
Really fascinating analysis. Lieutenant Colonel James J. Carafano is a leading expert in national security. He is at Heritage. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate your time.
Anytime. You have a great show. Love being on.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.